towers high, trying to reach the sky. Replace the living God with men, with beasts, with crowns. Confusion all around. They sold us every lie and claimed that God had died. We're leaving the land of confusion, walking away from the lies. He is in the very breath we breathe. He's closer than we realize. Not a man upon a throne, not a statue made of stone. Yahweh's closer than our breath. We're leaving the land of death. They taught us God was far, hidden in the dark. But the fall only cut the line, it never killed the spark. Now the old walls crack, the false light starts to fade. We're waking from the dream that Babylon had made. We're leaving the land of confusion, walking away from the lies. He is in the very breath we breathe. He's closer than we realize. Not a man upon a throne, not a statue made of stone. Yahweh's closer than our breath. We're leaving the land of death. No more chasing shadows, no more bowing to the beasts. The real one never left us. He's in the breath we breathe. We're leaving the land of confusion, walking away from the lies. Yahweh in the breath we breathe. He's closer than we realize. Not a man upon a throne, not a statue made of stone. Yahweh's closer than our breath. We're leaving the land of confusion. Leaving the land of confusion. Yahweh, closer than the air we breathe.
Ooh, August 18, 2026. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. I am your host, Watchful, and it has been a while. We've got a lot to catch up on, a lot of news, a lot of things happening, and we should just get started. Let's do this. Two Witnesses Live. All right, here we go. Trump issues dire warnings. Let's get the news out of the way because I got a bunch of stuff I got to handle today. We got a lot of catch up doing. I still want to do a breakdown from the Eclipse. So we got to do a breakdown from the Eclipse. We're going to respond to Dr. Todd Phillips's 109 questions. Today we were talking about God's hiddenness and why does it seem like God is not present? He actually is. All right, Trump issues a dire warning to allies. The 60-day deadline for a broader U.S.-Iran agreement expired Monday with no deal. Surprise, surprise. President Trump made clear he will not tolerate foreigners meddling with his plans. even if they are allies. Oman, a longtime American partner, has been talking with Tehran about managing shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Those talks could undercut the leverage the United States currently holds with its naval blockade. Trump did not mince words. He said, if Oman gets in the way, we'll bomb the shit out of them. Dude, serious. He has left an open pathway to peace, but only if Iran abandons any remaining hopes of acquiring a nuclear weapon. Back-channel talks with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps appear possible. Bilateral talks between Iran and Oman are not. The Strait of Hormuz, heavily restricted. Shipping volumes are a fraction of normal. The United States continues to rotate naval assets and maintain economic pressure. Iran has rejected any idea that the strait becomes U.S. territory. Stay watchful on this one. The situation remains fluid with pretty high stakes. All right, moving on. Carrier relief is on the way. The USS Abraham Lincoln has been on an extraordinarily long deployment supporting operations related to Iran. More than 250 consecutive days at sea with only 2 brief port calls. Reports from sailors, there's sailors on boats, not soldiers, although I'm sure there's probably soldiers on there too. Reports from sailors and families have described supply friction, plumbing issues, limited fresh food early on, and real strain on morale. Officials say many problems have been addressed and the crew remains mission-focused. Relief is coming. The USS George Washington is now heading from the Pacific to replace the Lincoln in the Middle East. Once the handover occurs, the Lincoln is expected to begin its return home as part of a planned rotation. This move will leave no U.S. aircraft carrier in the Western Pacific for a period of time. Well, that's scary. I'm sure we have other defenses, right? We don't need an aircraft carrier for inland, do we? Probably not. All right, let's talk about the Texas Senate race rocked by defection. A high-profile Republican staffer has crossed party lines in Texas. Jacob Smith, who spent 5 years as deputy legislative director and policy advisor for Senator John Cornyn, has joined Democrat James Tallarico's Senate campaign as deputy political director. Smith did not hold back. He called Ken Paxton the most corrupt, self-dealing politician in Texas who would sell their future to the highest contributor just to hold on to power. You sure he's not a dino? Democrat or rhino, Republican in name only? One Republican operative who has worked Senate races called the move unheard of. Cornyn lost to Paxton in a bitter primary runoff earlier this year. Paxton carries significant baggage. Past impeachment, a fraud case resolved with community service, and personal scandals that surfaced during his divorce. Tallarico has raised more than $70 million, outpacing every other non-incumbent Senate candidate nationwide. The race is being described as potentially the most competitive Texas Senate contest in years. Polling shows it competitive, with some disaffected Republicans and independents open to Tallarico. Many Republicans who wanted Paxton over Cornyn because of stronger alignment with President Trump are watching closely. Scandals continue to dog Paxton. Texans have long memories. Just remember that. All right, CCP-linked purchase near the White House. This is old news, but we haven't had a chance to cover it. A foundation tied to Philip Chu purchased the historic securities building, roughly 650 feet from the White House grounds, for $8.4 million in July. Chu, or Chi, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, has held positions connected to Chinese government, security organs, and United Front Work Department linked organizations. He has publicly described the Chinese Communist Party in glowing terms. Former intelligence officers have raised clear national security concerns about the location and the buyer's background. Questions about foreign ownership of sensitive real estate near critical U.S. sites continues to grow. Other noteworthy things worth watching. Newly declassified material continues to shed light on Eric Swalwell's past relationship with Christine Fang, the Chinese national known in FBI files as Rusty Thumbs. A recent poll shows a majority of Democrats hold a positive view of socialism, while Republicans strongly reject it. It's no wonder they're called Democrats. If you truly understood what socialism meant for a country and what it does for a country, you would abhor it. Let's see. Counter cartel operations continue under the Trump administration with expanded designations of Latin American criminal groups as foreign terrorists, organizations, and growing joint efforts with regional partners. In the Pacific Northwest on August 14th, this was pretty interesting. I didn't get a chance to actually see this. I don't think I was close enough. I was hoping I would have been able to see it when I heard about it, but maybe see more of it, but just not close enough to see it. In the Pacific Northwest on August 14th, a bright bolide, a small asteroid fragment roughly 16 inches across, lit up the sky over Washington State around 12:48 a.m. It was widely seen and recorded. No confirmed meteorites recovered so far. And finally, you've all heard about this. Actress Hayden Panettiere, known for Heroes in Nashville, was found unresponsive and pronounced dead Sunday in Greenville, South Carolina. She was only 36 years old. Preliminary reports indicate no sign of foul play. An investigation continues, and it should be noted that her brother had recently passed away of heart conditions. Surprise, surprise. Where have we heard that before? Anyway, that's the news update, bringing us up to date with kind of the top stories that have happened to this point. We'll keep watching the Iran situation, obviously, the carrier rotation, the Texas Senate rate, and the ongoing pressure against cartels and foreign influences. Stay alert, stay grounded, stay watchful. And now we're going to skip to the timeline update because I want to get into talking about what is it that I want to get into talking about? We want to get into talking about the eclipse that happened on August 12th and kind of go through what happened. Are we in, was it August 12th or 15th? I don't know. My brain is kind of scrambled. It's been crazy the last couple of weeks. Let's see. So we're just going to say it's August 12th. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I'm pretty sure it was August 12th. Anyway, we're going to do a timeline update, and we're going to debrief the eclipse. Here we go.
I created the heavens and the earth, a perfect harmony, a timeless birth. I shaped the stars, I set them free. A world of wonder, a song for me. I formed the man, the dust took flight. I gave the woman a shared delight. Together they stood, my breath, their frame. A mirrored heart, a living flame.
All right. So the question is, are we in the Great Tribulation right now? And the answer is, I still don't know. The idea was here. So let's go back to the timeline. So go into my Watchful's timeline. Here we go. So there is a chiastic structure, and this was just speculative based on these seals. So seals 1 through 4, the speculation was that maybe because, so we keep reading in the scripture about time and a half of times, or 1,260 days, all these equations that equal 3.5 years, right? Or half of 7, right? Because 3.5 time and a half of times, if you take the seals being opened up and you say time and a half of times out of 7 seals, well, that's 3.5, right? So that was leading to this idea that, okay, so maybe it's a chiastic structure, which means mirror image, where the eclipses that open that are directly opposite of the first 3, maybe that's how we know how to identify the remaining seals, because these ones were really obvious. Seal 1, 2, and 3, and 4 even. They had living creatures, which are constellations, the best we can tell, saying, come and see, right? Drawing attention to the event on that day. We had descriptions of what to look for. Things happened. Even the definitions of the stars and alignments on these days indicate what happened. So we had these very clear events that marked these days. So it stood to reason that these would mirror those. So like this one, seal 7 would mirror 1, seal 6 would mirror 2, and seal 5 would mirror 3. Well, February 17th was the first candidate for the mirror on seal 5, mirroring seal number 3. That came and went. There was nothing that was obvious about a great tribulation, although, to be fair, the war with Iran has started since then. So depending on how you interpret great tribulation, that could have been it. But because there was no massive, death event on the earth, that if God hadn't cut it short, no flesh would survive, because that's kind of the metric we're using to figure out, are we in this thing or not? Because that didn't happen, we figured, okay, well, maybe it's August 12th, 2026. Maybe this is a mirror, because you still got a somewhat symmetrical mirror image. If this is the opening of seal number 5, and it came and it went, and there's no nuclear attack. There's no run on the grocery stores. We're not really experiencing anything that I would call great tribulation. Granted, there have been some very interesting things that have happened. A couple of holes in the sun showed up, earthquakes, and volcanoes that are not supposed to be active are becoming active. So there is definitely some interesting things that are very end times like that have been happening, but nothing that really fits the description of the Great Tribulation. So because that didn't happen, it's got me questioning, well, maybe it's not a chiastic structure. The problem here with the seal 5, 6, and 7 is that there's no living creature calling attention to the opening of the seals. With the first 4, there's this figurative mental picture of living creatures, the lion, the calf, the face of the man, and the flying eagle, calling attention to, where is it? These guys. You get the 4 living creatures right here. For seals 1 through 4, you got, this guy saying come and see, this one saying come and see, this one saying come and see, and this one saying come and see. So we don't have that for 5, 6, and 7. Why is that? That's the big question. Also, there's no horses associated with seals 5, 6, and 7. So the best I can tell you is that the first 4 seals are describing a period of time where there are events which are going to that are going to be recognizable. We get that from the 4 living creatures saying come and see. They're going to be recognizable. They're going to be global. I think that's what the horses mean. I'm sure the colors have meaning also. You'll find people who will ascribe colors, a meaning to the colors. And I don't think anybody's in agreement on what they actually mean. Some people say white means purity, therefore it must refer to Jesus. Other people will say it's referring to the Antichrist because it's whatever, stuff like that. Red, war, scary blood, blah, blah, blah. the best I can tell is, according to Zechariah 5, the horses represent the spirits that go to and fro in the earth. So combine it with the events that happened. Everything had a global impact. COVID, the pandemic, had a global impact. Biden becoming the president and being given control over the vaccine had a global impact. He used it globally. The yoking together of the United States and the United Kingdom, I assume it has a global impact. I think we have yet to see the actual impact of that. I'm kind of wondering if that's not the beast from the land, because it has two horns, and horns seem to represent, countries or kingdoms. So it could be that, that we could have seen the yoking together. The rider on the black horse is holding a yoke, right? And I don't think it's any coincidence that in Revelation 13, it talks about the beast from the land having two horns. And then, obviously, the Alexa flood and Operation Iron Sword has had a massive impact, continuing impact. It's woken up the Jews, like every Jew in Israel. They're, number one, they're all trying to move back to Israel. And number two, they're all looking for the Messiah right now. So it has woke them up. So that brings us to seal number 5. So we're living through these events of the first 4 seals, and now we're looking for this next transition. The Great Tribulation, according to Matthew 24. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning. Let's go read this. Matthew 24. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time. That is a tall order. This is why we were looking for, and this is why we're saying, be prepared. Because, okay, so this has not happened yet, clearly. But by all accounts, it's going to happen. I was listening to one channel who had made an interesting observation that talked about the sun will be darkened and the moon will be turned into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord. It may be that we need to see a solar eclipse and then a blood moon before the great tribulation. If the day of the Lord, that great and terrible day of the Lord, is the beginning of the great tribulation. So here at Matthew 24 and 21, for then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world. No, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Then, so you've got like this competing narrative here where it's like, okay, things are going to be really bad. But then it says, if anyone says to you, look, here is Christ, or there, do not believe it, for false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I've told you beforehand, therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out, or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so will the coming of the Son of Man. For wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. This all screams of like nuclear war to me. It really does. Like the way I imagine the Great Tribulation happening, and you can see we're on the edge. You can see we're right on the precipice of this right now. You can see that we're looking at this with what's going on in Iran, with Oman, with North Korea and South Korea and China. We can see these things moving into place. We can see these the puzzle pieces moving. So we know it's happening. It's coming. The question is there some kind of marker, something in the stars that can tell us, that will give us any kind of an indication of whether we're here or not? You know, whether are we when to expect it? That was the hope of this eclipse, you know, and there were some good things about this. There were good attributes about it. You know, I didn't buy the planet of the parade of planets. If you watched my video where we went through and we analyzed The most that seemed like visible to anybody was like 2 or 3 at sunset. People were hyping it up like, 5 or 6 planets were visible to the naked eye if you caught it at the right time. I don't think so. The current alignment where they are right now, with the exception of a couple of planets, they've been relatively in that same line for several months now. A couple of them have moved, but it did not seem like a unique alignment to me. The Perseid showers, the peak of the Perseid shower, the meteors was pretty interesting, and we did see even where we're at, in our area, we did see, I don't know, a couple of dozen, or a couple, well, not a couple of dozen, maybe a dozen. Yeah, but we didn't see any of those fireballs. I really wanted to see some of the fireballs. But we did see some of the Perseid meteors, showers, whatever, meteorites coming to Earth. Those were cool. And here we are. Like, things seem to be relatively calm around the world, relatively speaking. If you're living in one of the areas where there's an earthquake or a volcano, I apologize for describing it as calm. It's anything but calm. You're probably freaking out. But it's not the great tribulation that we were expecting. It's not the, nuclear tit for tat that it looks like it's possible. You know what I mean? Like, say Iran gets a nuclear bomb. They're going to use it. And then somebody's going to respond. And then somebody else is going to come in and respond. That's kind of what we're looking for. So, what have I done? Because the chiastic structure seems to be failing, it doesn't seem to be a legitimate way of reading what's happening. I went and built another app, as is my habit. So, if you go to Two Witnesses Live now, and there's a new app up here called Stars. So what I did is I took everything. There's 3 prevailing books on interpreting the stars, and they're all based on Psalm 19. So in Psalm 19, if you come over here, Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Day unto day utter the speech. That's you and me. We talk. And night unto night reveals knowledge. So this is kind of the basis, the foundation for the work from E.W. Bollinger, from Seiss, and from, there's another guy. What's his name? It is Rolston. So there's 3 prevailing works that are pretty exhaustive, and what they do is, so there's this idea that the Gospels are written in the stars, and that too comes from Psalm 19. So if you continue reading in Psalm 19, there is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. So this is the idea that there's information being portrayed in the heavens day after day and night after night. And it's a voice that is speaking over and over again. And in some cases, the Bible actually refers to the movement of the planets as messengers, that they're giving a message. Specifically in Revelation 1, where it talks about the man with the white beard is holding 7 stars in his hands, and they're defined as the messengers to the 7 churches. We're going to get into this stuff here. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. You know what I think about this is, like, if you're truly paying attention, if you see what's happening on the earth and you're paying attention to what's going on in the sky, you will eventually put those 2 together and see that the heavens are declaring information. I know this personally because it's the reason I left the ministry I was raised with. I had started to notice that when there were blood moons, there were unusual events. And you can just go Google this. Go Google all the weird things that have happened on blood days that there were blood moons. Or use Grok, use ChatGPT. You'll get a list. People of renown who were born, people, people of renown who have been killed, massive disasters. There's interesting things that have happened on blood moons. Well, I had noticed this in 2000. Maybe it was 2001. Early on in the 2000s, I had noticed this, and I had written a letter to one of my pastors telling, just super excited, man, if I could find that letter. I doubt he kept a copy of it. If I could find the old computer I wrote it on, I probably have a copy of it. But I was so excited that I had discovered this connection of this night unto night show reveals knowledge. Night unto night reveals knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. And the dude had the how do I say this in a nice way? It's not nice. Say nice words. Watchful, be nice. He had rather than acknowledging the wonders of the heavens declaring knowledge night unto night, he had looked at it as a form of astrology and witchcraft and trying to divine special information using knowledge from demons. This is what he had said. Audacity. That's a good word. He had the audacity. He had the audacity to declare that I was practicing witchcraft and astrology and that I needed to stop immediately because I did not love God. And that was the part that kind of was like the stab through the heart, you know. In my mind, I'm seeing God work. You know, I'm looking at the Creator screaming, pay attention. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. If you're paying attention, you will see these things. And you're almost without excuse, because if you're looking and you're seeing these things happening, you know the Creator is doing something. And this is true for, you know, a lot of these eclipses. Like there are weird things that happen on the days of eclipses. So this is not astrology. Astrology, I should have probably looked up a clever definition of astrology. Astrology is, number one, it's inconsistent. There's multiple definitions, and it tends to be either predictive of one's own future or relationships, kind of like your horoscope and stuff like that, horoscope, where they try to divine from the positions in the stars what's you can look for in your life. What makes it bad is that it's not biblically based and it's not God's voice. That's the thing that's the differentiating aspect. Is it's not God's voice, is it's men trying to apply it to deceive. Really, is it's lies. It's not trying to discern what it is that God's saying. It's trying to discern, relevant, secret, relevant information to your life. Now, I will say there is some I'm not saying be afraid of astrology. I'm just saying I've looked at it before and have yet to find any relevance to understanding current times and events. I actually do look at this from time to time because when was this? There was one time where the astrologers had actually nailed something. The assassination attempt. Yeah, if you go back and you look at the assassination attempt on Donald Trump's lives, in Pittsburgh, that first one that kind of was a big deal, the one that he got up and he shouted, fist bump, fight. The astrologers were going crazy a month before, saying that there was going to be an assassination attempt. This is why I think some of the people who made their names really big, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but there are some people who seem to look at that kind of information and make their predictions. So maybe there is something to it. Maybe we have something that we can learn from them by looking at how it was that they were able to to figure out that there was an assassination attempt coming. Anyway, their line has gone throughout all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has sent a tabernacle for a son. Tabernacle is a tent for the son, which is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber and rejoices like a strong man to run its race. It's rising from one end of heaven and its circuit to the other end. In other words, it's describing the planets and the orbits, the sun and the moon, all that it does. So based on this, and because the chiastic structure doesn't seem to be doing what it is that we need it to be doing, I'm wondering if there isn't enough information to reverse engineer the knowledge that God is sharing night after night. You know what I mean? And it's a slippery slope, because I'm trying not to veer into astrology to where I'm not trying to make something up that I want this to be, right? I'm trying to take the information that we have, that we know to be true, the facts, and look at what happened on those days to see if it can define certain things for us to understand what's being said. Now, let me give you an example. So if we go back, if we go back into history here, so this is basically, we've got a way to pick a date up here. So you can either pick any date, or you can choose upcoming or history. This drop down affects the eclipses that show up here. So like history, we can see 8/12/2026 was the last one. If we do upcoming, this is going to change this to the next one, 8/28. There's a partial lunar eclipse. Some people are claiming, but I need to, before the end of the show, we need to check on this, because I see if there's any validity to this. They're trying to claim that this is a blood moon. I don't think it is. But there are some people who are claiming that August 28th, 2026 is when the rapture is going to be, or the start of the Great Tribulation or something, because of the sun will be darkened and the moon will turn to blood. They're trying to say that's what this is. We'll look at it. I don't think that's the case, because there are very specific blood moons that we can filter out here. The next blood moon isn't until December 31st, the actual blood moon. But who knows? We'll see. Our definition of a blood moon could have been different from other people's. Anyway, so if we come back here, we go to history and we look at seal number 1, which I don't have these labeled as seals or anything like that. It's just that it happened on December 26, 2019. This, I believe that this shows the start of the Great Tribulation. And if you come here and you look at this, so seal number 1 is the rider on the white horse. He's given a crown and a bow, and he goes forth conquering and to conquer. That's seal number 1. So this happened on December 26, 2019. Sagittarius had a coronal, an annular solar eclipse, which is the one that looks like a crown, above his head, and he happens to have a bow. And this also happens to be, it was also visible from China, and this happens to be when the pandemic technically started. They've since publicly come out and said they traced it to December. So there was an eclipse in December. It stands to reason that this could be seal number 1 being open. Now, that alone should be enough to get your attention. But look at this. When you look at, so let's switch to like Seiss. How do you say it? S-E-I-S-S, Seiss. We'll look at Seiss and Bollinger. And Ralston, they're all very similar. They've gone through, and what they've done is they've worked on this framework to understanding the stars. So the names of the stars that make up the constellations has been relatively the same throughout for a very long time, as far back as they could as we can go. The names of the stars have been relatively the same. So like, these stars right here, Deneb, Algali, these, you can't read these on this chart. But this is Aquarius, Pisces, Australis, and Balin Aerostatique. Is this Ophiuchus? No, that's Taurus. And serpentines. Anyway, so these guys have built a framework where taking the names of the stars and the meanings of the planets, they've come up with rudimentary ways for reading the heavens. So if you go to any date on here, you can look at the translation here. The king, actually, this is where the translation starts. I'll explain this stuff here in a minute. So this is the gospel in the stars reading, and this is kind of we've kind of heard a little bit about this before. If you watched the show with me on August 12th, so this is on the annular solar eclipse that happened at the beginning of COVID. The price deficient and the price that covers. The price deficient, the price that covers. The warrior, the serpent bearer, the head of him who holds, the messenger. The word sent forth, the conqueror going forth. So there's one key word from seal number 1, the conqueror going forth. Praise prepared for the conqueror, the head of the arrow, the son of righteousness, the bridegroom, the light of the world, the faithful witness, the reflected light, the congregation and Israel under the covenant, the bow, the king, the righteous ruler, the scepter of the coming king, the prince of the earth, the Sabbath, the rest that remains for the people of God, the sacrifice of the great, the kid cut off, the slain, the bright morning star, the promise of the day. It's not very easy to read, is it? It's just a bunch of names mashed together to kind of try and form a paragraph. So that's Sace. Here's Bollinger. The Redeemer's atoning work, the price is deficient, the price which covers, the warrior, the mighty man, the head of him who holds, the messenger, the word sent forth, the Redeemer's triumph, praise prepared for the conqueror. So that's a little different than the conqueror going forth. The head of the arrow, the son of righteousness, the bridegroom of light of the world, the faithful witness reflected, the congregation of Israel under covenant, the bow, the king, the righteous ruler, the scepter of the coming king, the prince of the earth. Let's see, the goat of atonement slain for the redeemed, the kid cut off, the slain, the bright morning star, the promise of day after night, the sacrifice cometh. And then Ralston, the scales, the price deficient, the price which covers, the warrior, the serpent holder, the head of him who holds, the messenger, the word sent forth, the bow, praise prepared for the conqueror. This is the key that's really interesting here, is the conqueror part. The head of the arrow, a lot of this is really the same. The kid cut off, slain, morning star, promise of day after night, the sacrifice cometh. Okay, so this is what I did using a combination of what they've written and what happened on this day. Now, this is really the whole point, is taking the information that we know to be factual and applying it to what happens on these days. So I've started a new lexicon. The lexicon basically takes words and ascribes definitions to them. So there are things that we know about the days of seal number 1, seal number 2, and seal number 3. I have a theory that this is the reason why God wanted us specifically, why there's 4 living creatures, why there were global events, why there, messengers in the stars, so that we can take all of this information and reverse engineer the lost art of understanding what's being said in the heavens. So based on that theory, this is what this app does. So I started a lexicon that ascribes obvious definitions to the things that happened on this day. So this is what I call the modern reading, modern lexicon. The price deficient, the price that covers, the scales of the earth, the price deficient, the debt unpaid, the price which covers, a covering paid, the warrior, the sword, Asclepius, the healer who holds the serpent. That's Ophiuchus. That's the constellation Ophiuchus. The sting given. So the reason why I added this is because that constellation is associated with healing. The Greeks associated it with healing. That's why it's called Asclepios, and he's holding, I believe, serpents. The serpents. Why the serpents? Oh man, can I find this video? I bring it up from time to time. It's actually in. I have it saved in my. Let me see if I can find this video real quick. They scrub it off the internet from time to time, but let me see if I can see Copperhead. Let's see, Copperhead, Head, Venom, and hyperbaric chamber. Oops. Here it is. They've put it back on the internet.
For a decade, we ran experiments in the prototype biosphere, which was a simulation of the pre-flood world. We do know certain things about the world before the flood. We have a handle on the electromagnetic field, which is decreasing exponentially. Every 1,400 years, we lose half the energy in that field. It was 0.5 Gauss. It is today 0.5 Gauss of energy. It was 10 times that because our calculations go back over the chronology of the decades and the millennia. So optimally, it was 5 Gauss of energy. That's what we ran in the prototype, and that's what we will be running in the new large biosphere. 5 Gauss of energy. That's optimal. Today, it's 0.5 Gauss. Twice I've lectured at NASA on this. Dr. Mario Acuna, the world's leading expert on Earth's magnetic field, agreed with our calculations, and he commended us for the work here. So we have a handle on the electromagnetic field. We have a handle on what the oxygen ratio was. We have a handle on what the atmospheric pressure was. Today, the atmospheric pressure is 14.7 pounds per square inch at sea level. We have calculations. I will not run those past you today. That would take a lot of time. Calculations to show that before the flood, it was about 24 psi, pounds per square inch. It is 14.7. You add just under 10 additional pounds per square inch. You wouldn't be able to feel the difference, but your body would know the difference. And significantly, at 22 pounds per square inch, the available oxygen begins to assimilate in the blood plasma, so that by 24 pounds per square inch, the entire blood plasma is saturated with oxygen. That makes an incredible difference.
Okay, let me catch you up on what it is that he's saying here. So they did experiments with hyperbaric chambers trying to replicate what the Earth was like before the flood. He's giving you a lot of the scientific details, and the reason he's giving them to you is because they're so minuscule, but they have such a massive effect. And this video and his series of videos that he have done is what is informing my interpretation of seal number 6 and why it is that I think what I believe is happening when it says that the magnetic, with what we're seeing right now with the magnetic pole shift, the rotation of the Earth, it looks like we're going back to the pre-flood Earth. And this could explain why we're seeing a rise in turbo cancers, is because the Earth is going back to that condition to where it's like this hyperbaric chamber. And during this period of time, and this is what he's going to show next, is they've done experiments in this environment. Snake venom is no longer toxic. It's no longer venomous. Instead, it's healing. And this is the thing I want you to see, because this is why I believe Ophiuchus is holding a snake, and it's associated with healing. It probably comes And this could also be why people do rituals with snakes is, there's information about the healing properties of snakes that have been passed down from generation to generation. The idiots just don't know the environment has changed, and now their bites will kill you. It may very well have been that whatever ailed you, get an injection from a snake and it may have healed you. And if you start to look into this, you'll actually see that they're using snake venom and they're treating it, and they're actually finding cures for things. There's an article just came out about the effects on breast cancer. So there's some interesting, implications from this. And I think I think it's in Revelation 9:6 where it talks about people are going to want to die, but they're not going to be able to die. As the earth transitions back into what it was before the flood, people are going to find it harder and harder. And we may actually our lives might start getting better. It's interesting that this is right around seal number 5 and 6 that this stuff takes place. Anyway, let's continue listening to the video and we'll talk about it after.
My wife's life was saved at Texas A&M University, where they put her under 2 atmospheres of pressure. We're going slightly less than 2 atmospheres. It assimilated the oxygen into the bloodstream so that her body was detoxified. She had 22 treatments ultimately that saved her life, and I'm so very, very grateful for that. That also solves the problem of the dinosaurs. The first dinosaur that I discovered, I found to have a small rib cage, the Acrocanthosaurus, discovered along the banks of the Paluxy River. And I was astounded because I hadn't read anything on that, and it was a trade secret of the paleontologist, that there was a problem that current atmospheric conditions could not solve. That is, there could not be enough oxygen fed to the deep cell tissue of the dinosaur's body with such a small rib cage, small lung capacity. It would require the creation model. So anyhow, this solves the problem of the dinosaurs. So we have a handle on that. So when we put snakes in there, we put a Grotilus and a Echidrodon contortrix. Those are rattlesnakes and copperheads. So we put rattlesnakes and copperheads in the biosphere. And we had Dr. Robert Popplewell from...
I know this video sounds terrible. It's not that old. It's only 2 years old. Actually, I think they've re-uploaded it because YouTube really does keep taking this video down. And they keep re-uploading it. It's from like 2008 or 9. This is when they actually did these tests. It's not that long ago. I mean, like 16 years. But really, not in the grand scheme of things, these tests are not that old.
Weatherford, PhD specialist herpetologist, provide the stock and the litter mates to them. And after about 3 weeks, Professor M.E. Clark, University of Illinois, tenured professor, came down for his 38th trip from the main campus to visit Creation Evidence Museum. And M.E. said, why don't you milk the snakes? I said, M.E., to the professor, I've said a number of times that it would take the third generation before we'd be able to see any difference in the venom. And he said, well, you've been wrong before. Thanks, Prof. He said, there might
Story
be
of my life.
some difference already. I said, it hasn't been long enough. He said, it won't hurt, so let's milk them. So I said, okay, M.E., you milk them. No, I don't touch snakes. You milk them. I don't touch snakes. No. I had a specialist put them in. So we brought Robert Popplewell and Robert Summers. They play with snakes. I mean, they love it. We have the documentation of the milking the snakes, and we put them under freezing conditions, etc., the venom. And then M.E. Clark and I transported them to an independent lab in Dallas. They ran them through scanning electron analysis, and to their absolute surprise, on one side we have the copperhead litter mates. Same litter, 40 miles away, brought them in, milked them. It's all gnarled like spaghetti. But after just 3 weeks in the biosphere, the complete restructuring had occurred. The same thing with the rattlesnakes. And this is your copy at the back. I won't read this.
You know, in Genesis, when it talks about the earth is under a curse, I think part of the way the earth has changed after the flood is part of that curse, because it may very well be the case that the things that hurt us and kill us now were actually part of the healing process and part of immortality prior to the change. It may be that the fountain of youth and the cure to all the things that ail us has been the animals that bite us. Interesting, huh? You ever wonder, like, you know, mosquitoes, they're little flying hypodermic needles. You know, now they transmit disease. Well, maybe they used to transmit cures. It seems to be the case that venom is different. So you've got these animals that have little hypodermic needles in them, and under the current conditions of the earth, they're very broken up and scattered. But under what we can tell, the earth was very likely like before the flood, when you subject them to a relatively short period of time to that atmosphere, suddenly their venom starts to change.
Same thing with the rattlesnakes. And Dr. Bowles said, you have to let me publish on this. On the back is a letter that he sent to me, a copy of a letter. We let him publish on this, and he published in the technical literature stating that we now have a new avenue to completely alter the basic matrix structure of venomous creatures. To chaos, to structure. And this opens new fields of investigation for scientific research in epidemiology and other areas particularly that have to do with the environment affecting epigenetics, the environment affecting genetic expression. I'll say one other thing that's not on the list. He then said, let me put 2 PhDs on this and we will do electrophoresis. So we did. Took our samples, ran them through electrophoresis, that is, the Western blot test. Some of you with a medical background understand that. The Western blot test runs DC current through the protein, and you get 4 columns of expression of the signals of the DNA, of the protein structure. And he called me to the lab and he said, this has never been done before. He said, this is a column showing where, compared to the litter mates, you have increased the strength of that genetic expression. Here, you have diminished that expression. Here, you have eliminated that expression. But here, you've actually performed a different expression.
Gain of function research. Oh, no!
That destroys evolutionary theory.
Yeah, it does.
Changes can occur in biological systems. Traits can occur in biological systems not because of evolutionary development and mutation damage, but because the information is already in the original organism. Do you understand what I just said?
Pretty interesting.
Charles Darwin, it's time for you to sit down. Because
it's a very interesting channel. It's worth spending some time there. There's a lot of gems hidden in this channel, but you see the point though. So why am I bringing this up? Why does this relate? So there's nothing. So this is Ophiuchus right here. This guy right here. He's right next to Sagittarius. He's also under the flying eagle. So you got the flying eagle saying, come and see what's happening. And you've got a crown on Sagittarius's head, which is a rider and a horse combo, given an arrow. And in the definition, modern definition, you've got the phrase going, or conqueror and to conquer. So here's my modern definition based on the available information. So, I was explaining why why healer was used. Asclepius, the healer who holds the serpent. That's why we watched that video. So keep that in mind when we're talking about the pandemic and the vaccine and stuff like that. Asclepius, the healer who holds the serpent, the sting given, the little sword. The head of him who holds Asclepius, the messenger, the word, and the decree sent forth, the conqueror going forth over the earth, praise prepared for the conqueror, the head of the arrow, the son of righteousness, the bridegroom, the appointed light, the light of the world, the day named, the faithful witness, the reflected light, the congregation of Israel under the covenant. So this is all relatively the same. The sacrifice of the goat, the kid cut off. So isn't that interesting? So this section here seems to be relevant to what happened on that day. I'd say we're getting a little bit closer to potentially understanding how to reverse engineering how God communicates night after night in the stars. And so these are not me adding words. This is me doing the investigative research to see what other definitions have been used. So we looked up Ophiuchus and Asclepios and what that means and doing the research on, the snake venom and stuff like that, and then updating the lexicon where it's applicable. And now that's what this reads like. Let's go look at another date. Let's look at seal number 2. That was December 12th or December 14th, 2020. This is seal number 2. Same thing happened. Asclepios. So a lot of these are the same because the circuits don't move that much. So I have this little display. So if we come in here and we go to 2019, December 2019. So December 26, 2019. And then we go 1 year at a time. So 2019. No, I guess I do move quite a bit. So I'll explain some of this stuff. It might actually we might have to do a couple videos on this tool to explain what's happening. But you can see, so what this is doing is it's showing the movement of the planets. These are the planets over here. So this is the Earth. This is the planets. The rings here are their orbits, and these are the constellations that they're in. So as they travel, they go in and out of certain constellations. The idea is the constellations represent like chapters in a book, because the way it works is if you look at through the course of a year, so if you start in January 2019, January 2019, there you go. You start January of 2019, the sun is, where's the sun? Son of righteousness is in Sagittarius. So right here. So this is where the sun is. And as you progress through the month, you can see the sun moving. And it just goes, so this is the sun right here, and it goes through the different constellations. So I'm under the impression that that's like chapters. So like there's so many details of this that we would be here all night if I tried to explain it all. I think if you're interested in this kind of thing, we can maybe we can do training videos on the tool and investigation into the the mechanics of it all. But the idea is because the sun spends 30 days in each constellation, it's almost like that's a particular chapter in a book. So like as the sun and the planets move through the sky, as the sun is in Pisces, so it's like the sun is in a particular chapter, and as the planet, this got all unaligned. These are supposed to be in here. Looks like my program screwed it up. As they move through the different constellations, it's like, okay, so you know you're in Virgo in like this in September, right? So the sun is in Virgo usually in September. That's the end of the 12-month cycle, the 12 chapters. Everything that is said in the sky relates to Virgo in some regards. So as the planets move through other constellations, the reading of them is associated with the chapter in Virgo, right? So, and then it's almost kind of like reading DNA. So I don't expect this to be easy because you've got to identify where the sun and the moon are. It's almost like the sun indicates the chapter, and then the moon indicates your placeholder in your book. It's almost like a bookmark. Like if you're reading through the paragraphs, that's like the moon. And then the locations of the planets, wherever they are in the skies, as they move through constellations and by stars, certain stars, they have meanings. And then when they're in conjunction or they form alignments, that adds new information. And then appointed times seem to be when there's an eclipse. So if there's an eclipse in a particular location in the sky, that has a unique meaning, and then everything in the sky is meant to be read in relation to that particular event. Hence why we're looking at the seals. So that's what all of this top part here is describing. So like it's describing the chapters and the what we call a stack. When the sun and the moon and one of the planets are in the same constellation, the terminology used here is stack. We're calling that a stack, and we're trying to see if it has significant meaning. Now, I'm not portraying this as written in stone. Think of this as more of a fluid tool that we're trying to discover. We're trying to reverse engineer the meaning by using what we know. It's almost like deciphering a code. The Rosetta Stone, there were a couple of languages that we had no idea how to understand until the Rosetta Stone was discovered, which had the same thing written in a known language and also the unknown languages, which gave us the beginning pieces we needed in order to understand those unknown languages. I kind of feel like we're doing the same thing with the stars here. Is the seals 1 through 4 seem to be like a Rosetta Stone. So we know the events that happened. We know what the alignments were in the stars, the appointed time with the eclipse, and we know how it is that we define the star names and the planets and their meanings. So by compiling all this information and seeing what makes sense, we can start to build, a dictionary of what things mean. All right. So I know this is probably getting boring. Let's move back to, let's look at not upcoming, but history. And we'll look at December 14th, 2020. So this was seal number 2. This was when the Electoral College declared Joe Biden to be the winner of the presidential election. We'll use the modern lexicon. And we'll just start here in the gold because this is pretty much always the same. Price deficient, the price that covers the scales of the earth, the price deficient, blah, blah, blah. So Asclepius, the healer who holds the serpent, the sting given, the little sword, the messenger, the word, and the decree sent forth, the head of him who holds Asclepius, the faithful witness, the reflected light, the congregation of Israel, the covenant, the appointed night, the son of righteousness, the bridegroom, the appointed light, the conqueror going forth over the earth, the head of the arrow, the bow, the prince of the earth, the earthly office. This is interesting. A king is given, the earthly ruler, I added the president, because from our perspective, the office of the president is kind of like a king. So the president, a king is given power to take peace from the earth. All right, so let's go read what this originally said before I went and mucked it up. So this is Sais, the scepter of the coming king, the Sabbath of rest, the rest that remains for the people of God. So that was Sais's interpretation. Here's Bollinger. The scepter of the coming king, the Sabbath, the rest that remains for the people of God, the blessings of the redeemed in abeyance, and Ralston. Let's see, the prince of the earth, the king, the righteous ruler, the scepter of the coming king. So this is why I kind of latched onto this going, the coming king sounds like the election of a president, the Sabbath rest. So then this is where I said, I think it makes sense to go, a king is given, the earthly ruler, the president, a king is given power to take peace from the earth, because that's what Sabbath rest is, peace. So if a king is given to take the Sabbath rests, the redeemed, multiplied, bound among the nations, the man not yet looked at. So you see where I'm going? It's not perfect, and I could be wrong on these things, but you can see the direction that I'm going, right? I'm trying to say, okay, we know these things happened on this day. We know that these were the alignments of the sun, moon, and stars and the constellations. How can we make it make sense? And it's coming together quite nicely. So you've got, the next one was June 10th, 2021. This is when they signed the new Atlantic Charter. We'll just start with the modern version. The earthly ruler, the president, a king is given, the record of the pouring out who goes and returns, the yoke that joins two beasts, the charter, the shepherd who carries the goats, the lambs, the congregation joined, the yoke, the charter that joins two, the faithful witness, the reflected light, the congregation of Israel under the covenant, the appointed light, blah, blah, blah. The two beasts who stand together joined under one yoke, the wounded. Okay, let's look at size. The king, the righteous ruler, the record of the pouring out who goes and returns, the coming judge, the shepherd who carries the goats and the lambs, the congregation, the governor, the follower, the twofold one, the wounded, the bright morning star, the promise of day after night, the coming ruler who comes to suffer, and Bollinger. Sacrifice cometh, the king, the righteous ruler, the record of the pouring out, who goes and returns, the Messiah coming judge, twofold nature of the king, the wounded, the bright morning star. See, the modern one just makes more sense. The earthly ruler, the president, the king is given a record of the pouring out, who goes and returns, the yoke that joins the two beasts who stand together. So this is the goat and the sheep, the two beasts who stand together, joined under one yoke, the wounded. See if you come back here. The twofold nature of the king, the wounded. Twofold. The two beasts who stand together, joined under one yoke. So you see what I'm going for there? So, and then finally we have another one. We have October 14th, 2023. This is Operation Iron Sword. The seed of the woman, the flood upon the earth. That's interesting. Flood upon the earth, the sword in her chapter, the despised offerings rejected of men, the son who comes, the branch coming, the messenger. So this is basically going to be the same if we were to do October 7th, which is the Al-Aqsa flood, 2023. So if we do October 7th. So we do October 7th here, and then we do October 14th here. I added this compare feature to see if there's any difference between these things. So if we come in here, we do October 14th, 2023. The only thing that's different is the two beasts who stand together joined under one yoke, the wounded, one beast who stands, the other beast who stands. That's the only thing that's different between these two. And that is the moon has moved from Virgo to Gemini. That's why you get the two beasts who stand together, join under one yoke. The wounded, one beast who stands, the other one who stands. So if I come in here and I clear out this is what it says. The two beasts who stand together, joined under one yoke. The wounded, one beast stands. Yeah. And then if I go to October 14th, 2023, October 14th, it's gone. So that's the difference. So you got two seals there. The modern reading, the living Watsi. It's interesting that the flood is mentioned. See upon the woman, the flood upon the land, the sword in her chapter, the despised offering, rejected of men, the son who comes, the branch coming, living water poured out upon the earth. This reminds me of Revelation 12, where the flood is cast out after the woman. So you got the woman, flood, the Sabbath rest, the record of the pouring out, the flood upon the land. So that is a theme, the pouring out. So you can see how things are kind of coming together, right? So I'll stop going through this because I know that some people just fall asleep when they start seeing this stuff. The whole point is what the hell happened on August 12th, 2026. So this is the modern reading of August 12th, 2026, which I thought was going to be seal number 5. Seed of the woman, the son who comes, the branch coming, the branch, the seed of the land, the redeemed multitude, bound among the nations. Here, if you want to read this to where it's less confusing, I made it so that we can do this. We can do history, this. The seed of the woman, the son who comes, the branch coming, the branch. So if we want to get rid of that, the branch coming, the redeemed multitude bound among the nations, the band not yet loosed, the Sabbath, the rest. We could probably get rid of the Sabbath. Nope, that's all one thing. Oops, dang it. Now I reordered it. Not what I wanted to do. I made this so that you can pick these things out of here, because sometimes you'll get a translation that has so many of the same words said in so many different ways that it's really annoying. It's really hard to understand. So this is a tool to try and glean what it's actually trying to say. The seed of the woman, the son who comes, the branch, the seed in the land, the redeemed multitude bound among the nations, the band not yet loosed, the Sabbath, the rest, the united, the band, the two beasts who stand together, joined under one yoke, the warrior, the sword, the wounded, one beast who stands, the other beast who stands, the possession held fast, the treasure sheltered, holding the messenger, the word, and the decree sent forth. The earthly ruler, the president, a king is given power to take peace from the earth, the sheltering, the treasure, just talking about Trump, the lion of the tribe of Judah, the judge who treads underfoot, the fleeing serpent destroyed, the son of righteousness, the bridegroom, the appointed light, bright morning star, the promise of day after night. So I got nothing. All of this is to say, I see no indication of the Great Tribulation here, but I think we might have the tools to be able to evaluate things as they happen, to maybe we'll find one that will indicate the Great Tribulation. So this is the next partial lunar eclipse. So I'm putting this out here for you guys. Play with this thing and see if you can make sense of what's being said in the heavens. Look at the seals. Tell me if I can do anything to make this easier to understand, because this is so extremely complex. I've been trying to fart around with the user experience and the UI on this thing, the layout. I'm trying to find a way to make it easier to understand. This is working under the idea of like a book, like you would read this and this. So here on this side you've got like the translation, on this side you've got the position of the stars. So play with this thing. We got to figure out if the heavens are going to give us any kind of a head up. I have to believe that when Jesus said, if the master of the house had known in what hour the thief would come, he would have watched. I have to believe that all of the information that we've been given in the Bible is so that we can discover these things. For example, Abraham, when he goes through and he gives the names of his 12 children, or Israel, sorry. When Israel declares the names and the meanings of the children, he frames it that this is information needed for the end, right? So should we be taking that into consideration? I've added in the 12 tribes. So if you want to add the 12 tribes, so there's an idea that the 12 tribes are the 12 constellations, that each constellation represents one of the tribes. So I added in a filter here that adds in the name of the tribe and the definition that Abraham gave them. Play with that. See if it changes what's being said in the translation. Also, the 7 churches. There is evidence that implies that the planets, each planet, because there's 7 of them visible from the earth, represents one of the churches listed in the book of Revelation. So I've got that in here. And then we've also got Hebrew name meanings, because the Hebrews, the names in Hebrew have slightly different meanings. So you can play with these. As you turn these off and on, it affects the translation. And then when you find something interesting, I got a couple of prompts in here. You can copy an AI prompt, which takes all this information, and you can go throw it in your favorite AI interpreter and say, make sense of this. I've gotten some interesting responses to that. And then if you want to make a song out of it, I also have a song prompt. Anyway. So, well, that's where we'll leave it with the gospel in the stars. Is I just kind of wanted to give you guys a breakdown of where we are with August 12th. Yeah, there's some interesting things that are happening on the earth. Earthquakes, volcanoes, and literally holes in the sun. There's like holes in the sun that have been opening up that are going to have an impact on the earth. So things are happening. But it does not seem as though August 12th was the opening of seal number 5. As much as it pains me to say that, I have to be honest here and tell you we had high hopes that it would, because that would mean that seal number 6 is next. Trust me, I'm not looking forward to seal number 5. Because if it is Revelation 6. If it is the start of the Great Tribulation, it's not going to be a fun time. When he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. See, this implies there's a period of death that's associated with seal number 5, and then seal number 6 seems like this is when Jesus actually returns. Because seal number 6 matches Matthew 24:31, which also describes similar events. Sky rolling up like a scroll, stars falling like fig trees, like figs. The sky receding as a scroll and is rolled up. Every island and mountain moved out of its place. That's why we think maybe this is the magnetic pole shift, which seems to be part of God restoring the heavens and the earth back to what it was before the flood. So that's probably a pretty good place to stop with the update on the eclipse. The end of the end, the too long didn't read after we went through the long read is, I don't know. I don't think seal number 5 is opened. If it is, it's not happening the way that I thought it would happen. So it could be open, and this could fall under the just because I'm not experiencing Great Tribulation myself doesn't mean the Great Tribulation's not happening. So that could be a very real possibility. You know, just because it's not bad here doesn't mean it's not bad everywhere else in the world. It is pretty bad in Russia, Ukraine, Iran. Those people are suffering. And in a lot of other places. There's a lot of suffering that's going on in the world right now. The UK. But my expectation is when seal number 5 opens up, when it's so bad that if it wasn't shortened, no flesh would survive, my expectation is that's probably nuclear where people start dropping nuclear bombs on each other. And if God didn't put a stop to that, nobody would be left. All right, let's move on to our next section here. I want to continue on addressing Dr. Todd Phillips. I told you this was going to be a long night. Got a lot of stuff to catch up on. We got to give our editor a lot of material to work with so he can turn these into shorter videos. So if you want to see the short version of these videos, catch them in the afternoon throughout the week. So the next section, we're going to play Fear of the Lord because I've just been digging this song lately. Because it's the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of knowledge. So this is Dr. Todd Phillips is a megachurch pastor and a scholar who is finally waking up to the lies that he was perpetrating, that he was teaching in a megachurch. He finally got to the point to where he's like, this doesn't make sense what I'm saying. And that, my friends, is the beginning of knowledge, because you're not gonna ruin truth by questioning whether something is true. Truth withstands the scrutiny of criticism. Truth withstands criticism. The more you evaluate truth, the more truth you find. The more you refine gold, the purer it becomes. Same thing with truth, is the more you evaluate these things. This is why we evaluate, our, things we're watching for versus our expectation versus reality. I expected seal number 5 to open on August 12th, and the reality of it is it doesn't seem like it did. So we continue to ask questions. We continue to refine. And I understand that this stresses people out, because you're like, you get to a point where you think something's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. Well, this is the process of watching, and we're going to do it all the way until Christ returns. So buckle up, Buttercup. All right, let's move into our next section, and we're going to start answering some of these questions, and then we'll get into the Daily Torment Report. So let's enjoy the song, Fear the Lord. Wait a minute, that's not Fear the Lord. I screwed up my buttons this weekend. Darn it. Hang on a minute. Let me see if I can find it. Well, you have an idea. Instead of doing that, we'll just play Fear the Lord. What album is that in? The Gathering Storm, maybe? Oh, no, that's in the 12 Tribes album. Boy, it's been a while since we played this one. I was listening to this song like crazy. This week, Fear the Lord. Here we go.
In the quiet of the night, when the signs are screaming loud, he whispers in his heart, the master's running late somehow. Beats the ones he should be feeding, trades the truth for drunken lies, chases shadows, numbs the watching, lets the lamp inside him die. The days grow long, the nights feel endless, he won't come today, so he joins the feast of scoffers, lets the fear of God decay. But the thief is in the garden, and the hour's drawing near. Every heartbeat is a warning, every comfort breeds more fear. Fear the Lord, no trembling servant, he is coming like a thief. In the hour you least expect him, no more time for unbelief. carried heavy sins unload. Thought the master tarried longer, lived as though he'd never come. Now the sky is split asunder, now the reckoning has begun. No escape for those pretending, knowledge brings the many stripes. Few for those who never knew, but you walked in gospel light. The wedding feast is over, now the master stands at the door. What will he find in your household? What was all the waiting for? Wake up, watchman, loins girded. Let your lamp be burning bright. Don't let delay poison your spirit through another sleepless night. The Son of Man is coming at an hour you think not. Will you be found faithful? Or will you be cut off? Fear the Lord, but trust His mercy. He rewards the steadfast heart. Blessed is the servant watching, ready from the very start. Found still feeding, still enduring, giving meat in season true. Ruler over all his treasures, seated where the master serves you. Endurance through the darkness, obedience in the wait. The good heart knows the Father, and the good heart meets its fate. Not in terror, but in glory, when the King steps through the door. Enter in, my faithful servant, you have waited. Now restore. Delay no more. Delay no more. Be the good servant forevermore.
God, that song hits so hard. Fear the Lord. I love it. All right, picking up with Dr. Todd Phillips. The beginning of knowledge is the fear of the Lord. And today we're talking about his divine hiddenness. So we're going to review the questions we're going to answer. These are the questions he's got. Here we go.
If God's real and I ever stand before him, these are the questions that I'd have. Why did you remain hidden? Why the silence? Why make faith the requirement instead of making your existence just plain to everyone?
Such a good question.
If you want a relationship with us, why make your existence debatable at all?
Yeah.
Why reveal yourself through a book that requires so much interpretation and translation and
Right? These are the questions that we all should be asking. And yet we just go to church. We suffer through the long rituals and the songs so that they can pass their collection plate and then tell us something that makes us feel good. Meanwhile, you got no answers.
disagreement throughout the centuries? Why allow thousands of religions to claim they actually represent you and then ask us to choose the right one?
Yeah.
Why let where we were born shape what we believe?
You know, what's so interesting is the more I'm learning about the 12 tribes of Israel, and maybe we'll play that song again if I can get it to work. That's another one. I've been listening to that over and over again to learn about the 12 tribes of Israel because they're so different. The different tribes are so... The 12 tribes are all so different. And the fact that in Zechariah 2, God says that they're spread throughout all the earth, through the four corners of the earth, is it tells me that that there are people from those tribes in every religion all over. You know, one of the reasons why he says he left Christianity is because when he realized that people based on where you're born determines on what you believe. And he could not reconcile how people who claim to be the faithful remnant, the right group, the one and only, right ones, how that could be determined by geography. That was kind of his path to starting to question the lies and the confusion. The reality of it is those who belong to God are spread throughout the entire earth, and they're found throughout all of the different churches and religions and groups. And this is the purpose of the Revelation 2 3 through 3 churches. Jesus organizes the groups into 7 different categories. And I believe that covers the whole gamut of the earth. You find yourself in one of these categories, if you're in one of the 5 that has something to repent from, you better get busy repenting. And that's probably what we're going to do this week, is we'll probably start collecting the things that you need to repent from. And we're going to probably make a song and make a list out of it of, like, if you're guilty of these things, you need to start addressing them before he returns. That's the whole point in him telling us about the 7 churches. Anyway, sorry, let's get back to the questions.
Believe about you, or if we believe in you at all. If eternal destiny is really at stake, why make the evidence so uncertain?
It's funny. There's been 2 videos with him that have come out that are probably worth us looking at. One of them is just a Christian apologist responding to this video or the 8-question video. And he takes the traditional negative approach where he's looking at this guy as having left God. And it's very sad, and it goes to show that he does not listen and pay attention, because that's not what Dr. Todd is saying. Dr. Todd is leaving the lies and the confusion that he's been taught. He's not leaving God. That's why he prefaces, if there is a God, this is my question, is he is now seeking answers. He wants to know the truth. So for anybody who's actually listened to what it is that he's saying, that's what it is that he's saying. And that's why we're addressing his questions, is because we're told to be ready to give an answer always to any man that asks you a reason of the hope. He is asking a reason of the hope. He's at the point to where it's just like, the things I hoped in have shattered and fallen out from underneath my feet. Somebody give me an answer to these questions. And he is very articulate, and has been plastering his videos on the internet ever since this has happened, which is, we just don't have enough time to respond to all of his videos. We're going to have him on the show and have a conversation. We are currently in the works of transitioning to more interviews. I'm trying to figure out how to offload some of the more daily grindy things that we do with the news and the Torment Report, so that we can focus once again on interviews. So we're working towards getting that back, because I want to interview Tovia Singer. I want to interview Roseanne Barr. I want to interview Dr. Todd Phillips here. We've got so many people that I'm just dying to. I've got so many questions for them and so many things that I want to show and present them. Anyway, sorry for interrupting. Let's get back.
Why let sincere people who sincerely search for you still come up empty? What are we supposed to conclude from that? If knowing you matters more than anything else in all of creation and existence, why make knowing you this hard? If God is real, and
All right, so those are the questions we're addressing today.
at all. If God
Divine hiddenness, and they are here. Let me position these different. There you go. Divine hiddenness. The questions: why remain hidden? Why the silence? Why make existence debatable? Why a book full of interpretation? Why so many competing religions? And fairness, sincere seekers, and uncertainty. Oh, one of the other videos I didn't mention that it would be worth looking at is somebody interviewed him. That's why I was like thinking, man, we got to get back to doing interviews. And he explained what he means by agnostic atheists. So when you hear that phrase, agnostic atheist, you may be tempted to think that it means somebody who doesn't believe in God. So agnostic means unsure, I believe is what he said. And atheist is about God. So the phrase is meant to be read together. He's unsure about God. And that's where he is right now, is he's trying to discover if there is a God and who he is, and why he's so hard to find. So we may have to watch parts of that video too this week since we're covering these things just to get some of his answers. But let's see how we do addressing some of his questions. This guy's pretty smart. He calls himself a scholar, which usually you call yourself a scholar if you actually have a certain level of education. I'm not a scholar, but if there was a test I could take, I could probably pass it. Yeah, I think you guys know me well enough that I've got enough of the Bible rolling around up in my head that I could probably answer some questions correctly if put to the test. So this is my attempt at answering Dr. Todd Phillips's questions, and I hope to find out someday if they're sufficient for him. And let's go. Why keep trying to see? Let's see. Wait. Core problem. Okay, yeah. So this is the foundation to his questions. I think I'm missing a slide. 1, 2. Did I move it out of place? Question 64. Creation cries out. Okay, why remain hidden? Why the silence? Okay. All right, so this is answering 61 through 63. So let's go listen to him ask that again.
God's real and I ever stand before him, these are the questions that I'd have. Why did you remain hidden? Why the silence? Why make faith the requirement instead of...
Okay. Why remain hidden? So we keep trying to see God as a man. And this is understandable. It's understandable that people do this. There's a figure of speech called condescensio. This is a legitimate figure of speech. You can Google it. That comes from E.W. Bullinger's book on figures of speech used in the Bible. And the figure of speech is called condescensio, where we ascribe human characteristics to the Creator. So like the hands of God, the voice of God, the feet of God. This is the figure of speech called condescensio. And because we communicate and we try to illustrate and talk about God, we filter it through what we experience in life, right? We are human. After all, the Bible says that we are made in his image. My opinion of that, of being made in his image, is not the physical body. My opinion is this body is the clay container. But what makes us who we are, that is the image of God. So what makes us who we are is not permanently bound to this clay container. And a reason we believe that is when this clay container goes back to dust, in theory, who you are still exists. So who you are, when the clay container returns to the dust, is more closely related to what God is, right? Spirit. To where God has a consciousness and a will. So when we're trying to see man, or we're trying to see God as the clay container that we're in, that's where you get problems. So when you think of God as a man, you expect to see him, you expect to hear an audible voice, and and interact with him the way that you would with another human. This is not how the Bible describes the Creator. John 4:24 says God is spirit. Think of him more like the wind, with consciousness and a will, fully alive, yet without a body. He cannot be seen, heard, tasted, smelled, or touched in the ordinary physical sense. This does not mean he is hidden. It means our expectations of him are wrong. So if you're looking for him, and this is why religion is confusion, because religion will insist that the Creator is a man. And until that man shows up, what's going to happen? What is religion teaching people about that man who goes into the temple and declares himself God? What are people going to think if that were to happen someday? They're going to think he's the Antichrist. So they're setting themselves up for failure because religion is teaching people as though God is a man, and then they're telling them that if he shows up, goes into the temple and tells you he's your God, then you're going to be confused. See what I mean? This is why I associate religion with Babylon, with confusion. If you listened to the words of the song that we played today for opening, it's all about escaping the land of confusion. Here we go. Let's see. Check this out. Leaving the land of death. This is all about Babylon. They build their towers high.
They built their towers high.
This is all about religion in Babylon.
To reach the sky, replace the living God.
Trying to
with men, with beasts, with crowns.
Yep.
Confusion all around. They sold us every lie and claimed that God had died. We're leaving the land of confusion, walking away from the lies. He is in the very breath we breathe. He's closer than
God
we
breathed into us the breath of life.
realize. Not a man upon a throne, not a statue made of stone. Yahweh's closer than our breath. We're leaving the land of death.
It's actually a really good song when you listen to the words. So we're leaving the land of confusion, and it's religion, and it's this idea that we're trying to fit God into a clay vessel, which that's the problem. Is you're not going to see him if you're trying to look for him in as something that he is not. So that's number one. Once you realize that God does not fit in a clay container other than being inside you because you're the temple. We are the temple of God, right? 1 Corinthians 3:16, don't you know that you are the temple of God and God lives within you? Literally, the very breath you have is because of the Creator. He said he breathed into Adam the breath of life. Even his name sounds like breathing. Yahweh. Yah, breathing in. Way, breathing out. Yahweh. Yahweh. Try it. My microphone mutes it out when I do it. But try breathing in. Yahweh. He's the very breath you breathe. That's how close he is to you. You're the temple of God. He lives within you. So when you break out of that confinement, then you start to see God everywhere. The reason why he seems as though he's hidden is because you're not looking in the right places. You're looking for a man, and God is not a man. Next slide. He is not as silent as we think. All of creation cries out with the voice of the Creator. There's a lot of scripture on this. But you have to get out of that framework of what Babylon is trying to tell you that God is. Babylon's wrong. God is everywhere. He's in the very breath you make. The creation is impossible from what we know and understand. Like anywhere, if you look anywhere in the universe, which we're subject to what people tell us is out there, because I don't think any of you are astronauts. If you are, you have a first person understanding of what's in the universe. If you've ever been into outer space, it's a vacuum, I believe. From what I understand, space is a vacuum, and it is brutal. So life on Earth is a miracle. So once you break out of the framework of the lies that religion teaches you, there's some religions are less murderous than others. But doesn't it bother you that there are groups out there that their belief system requires that they kill other people? Death cult. We call them death cults. That is a problem. Death cults are a problem. You know, Jesus came to reveal his Father. He came to make him known. And he showed us how to love God and how to obey God. And he made it so simple that anyone can do it from anywhere in the world, from any religion. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. You love God, but not making him something he is not. When you make God something that he is not, that is called iniquity. Exodus 20. God does not appreciate that. He does not. Would you? Would you appreciate being called a dog? No. If somebody were to insist that you are something that you are not. Jesus came to reveal God, show us who he is, how to love him, and what he expects. And if you're doing that, this is what we learned from the 7 churches in the book of Revelation. So when you look at the 7 churches, there's 7 of them. So Jesus groups all religions that are following the Messiah into 7 categories. Out of those 7 categories, only 2 of them are getting it right. The church under crushing pressure and the church of brotherly love, Smyrna and Philadelphia. Love God, and by loving God, the world's going to hate you. And love your neighbor as yourself. You're going to be a light in among the darkness. Right now we're living among darkness because the earth is under a curse. We saw that, talking about that today, about, the curse even affects the snakes and their venom, which makes it venomous. So God is not as silent as we think. It's because the filter that Babylon puts over your eyes that makes you not see God. I see God everywhere. I have a constant conversation going with God. You should too. God hears and sees everything because he is everywhere present. He is fully aware of everything that you're going through. All of creation cries with the voice of the Creator. He also works through that still small voice, the quiet prompting that you are never quite sure if it's your own thoughts or his. It's usually hindsight where you realize, oh, that was God helping me along in that situation or nudging me or telling me to do something. The demand that God make his existence plain in a physical, man-like way assumes the evidence is currently insufficient, where the reality is many are only now just opening their eyes. Once you get out of religion, once you get away from the fear of sin and death, that's what religion does, is it forces you to follow using fear. If you don't believe a certain particular religion, you're going to burn in hell. You're going to go to the hot place. If you don't follow a certain law or perform a certain ritual, you're going to lose your hand or lose your head. That's not the creator of the heavens and the earth. Men are doing that. Religion, Babylon, the confusion. The men who are trying to build a tower to God, to heaven. They're trying to define and contain the creator. Once you get away from all of that and you start to ask questions like Dr. Todd Phillips is asking, you start to really discover who the creator is. And he's way, way, way bigger than what a lot of these religions are teaching. Now, granted, there are some that are doing good. I'd say that, if you're in a church that's not trying to kill people, you're doing pretty good. If you're not in a death cult, you're doing pretty good. If you're not in a cult that is for the glorification and enrichment of the leader or of the people in charge, you're doing pretty good. If you're in a group that actually cares about what is really written in the scripture, you're doing pretty good. So not everybody's bad. Not all churches are bad. Not all religions are bad. We learned from the 7 churches in the book of Revelation that God is in every single church somewhere. There are some people, even in the worst of the worst churches, even in the worst of the worst places, Sardis. So Sardis is arguably the worst because it doesn't do a damn thing good for God. It doesn't do any good. And yet there are still some in there that are worth saving. And they're just told to hold on. Hang on, I'm coming soon. So you may find yourself in a murderous death cult and love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and practice loving your neighbor as yourself. And you may be in a tough situation, and he says, you know what? Just hang on. Hold on to your britches. So we got to break out of that mentality of insisting God show himself. Show us a sign. Because the signs are literally everywhere if you just look. You see God in everything. I mean, we're still learning about creation. Do you know that plants have feelings? They're just discovered plants have feelings. They get sad and they get happy. How silly is that? That is so cool. All right, moving on. Before the tree, there was living contact. Okay, so before Adam and Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, there appears to have been a living connection to the Creator, something like an unbroken link. Now, I associate this to something that we understand today for the purpose of illustration. After the fall, the connection was severed. We see the result of this in the Old Testament pattern where the Spirit had to come upon prophets for them to hear and speak what God was saying. Also, the fact that God had to come find Adam and Eve in order to speak with them is an indication that something had changed after they partook of the tree of knowledge of good and evil that they were told not to. So the silence that many experience is not God playing hide and seek. It could potentially be the lingering effect from that severed connection. In other words, let me make this more simple. When Adam and Eve were in the garden, they had a strong Wi-Fi connection to the Creator of the heavens and the earth. After they partook of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the Wi-Fi connection died and they lost signal. Therefore, if you're not connected anymore, God's got to come find you. And the prophets in the Old Testament who heard from God, there was a temporary solution, almost like a Wi-Fi hotspot, where they had Spirit upon them in order to hear from the Creator. And that's the holy men of God spoke as they were moved by the Holy Spirit, and why we have some information about the Creator that has withstood the test of time is because of that temporary Wi-Fi connection. There's been times where people have had that Spirit upon them, and it's resulted in the Bible. Now, just because we have that knowledge doesn't mean people don't abuse it. So why make existence debatable if you want a relationship? This is a direct consequence of the fall and of Babylon. It all goes back to Adam and Eve with the confusion and the curse that we're under. This is why it's so bloody hard to have a relationship with the Creator. Religion itself has often functioned as Babylon, multiplying systems, images, and claims that obscure rather than reveal. Seems like every week somebody's coming out with a new religion, a new reason why they're separate, why you got to believe them instead of somebody else. Many do not yet have the relationship they crave because they have recently discovered much of what they long believed was a lie, like Dr. Todd Phillips. They are now on the necessary journey of unlearning and discovering who God truly is, that then a relationship can be formed. So let me simplify this slide. If you're living in confusion, if you're in a death cult or if you're in a confusion cult, we should call that a new. We should define the useless churches as confusion cults. The cult of confusion, Babylon. So if you're in a death cult or a confusion cult, it's going to be much more difficult to have. Well, I got to be careful with this because you can definitely have a relationship with God, even if you're in one of those, if you're in a confusion cult or a death cult. But recognizing it and having a high level of confidence in the Creator, that can be obscured by the confusion cults. You know, if they're teaching you that God is a cow, for instance, which is literally something that happened, you know, when Moses led the children of Israel out of bondage from Egypt, as soon as he went up the mountain to go talk to God, they started making a golden calf and claimed that the calf was their God and that it was the one who led them out of bondage. This is the problem. The cult of personality. Yeah. So if you believe that your God is a cow, you're going to have a hard time having a relationship with the true creator, the real creator. He's probably going to be kind of pissed that you think he's a cow. Isn't that just silly? People believe different things. People in these different religions believe, you know, there's a monkey religion, there's a cow religion, there's dog religions, cat religions. The things that people believe are their creator and the source of who they are is innumerable. It's ridiculous. This is why God says make no image of him, including the clay vessel we find ourselves within. That's not a valid image, other than as the temple where he resides in me right now. He resides in you most likely right now. Those who are listening to this broadcast. All right, next question. 65 through 66. Why a book that requires so much interpretation? So God is not a man or any kind of creature that can simply step into physical space and reveal himself the way that a human could. Asking the creator to take a shape and speak in an unmistakable physical voice is like asking the wind to become a statue for your own convenience. There are things that God cannot and will not do because they would contradict his nature. The idea that God can do anything is itself often an overstatement, often pushed by the cult of confusion. This is something that we could debate all day long. God, you know, there are definitely things he cannot do. There are things that he definitely can do, but there are also many things that he cannot do. This is why when Jesus had fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, knowing that there were things that he could do, and yet if he abused them, it would have been a sin. It was a challenge for him. Command that these stones be made bread. You don't need anything but the bread of the word. That's not a quote. Angels, creation, and mankind are the primary means we have in this age. The written word is a faithful testimony received through human language and fallen interpreters. Full knowing waits for the immortal body. In other words, we're still we live in this world which is cursed. We live in bodies which are experiencing death. We're if you're not growing, you're dying. We have an expiration date right now. It would seem as though we were originally made with no expiration dates, but things have changed. Number one, the entire planet has changed. That's what we learned from watching that snake video about the hyperbaric chambers and how they put snakes into the hyperbaric chambers. And just after 3 weeks, the venom of those snakes completely changed. And it went from having toxic effects to potentially healing effects. So, people, there's this idea that people don't realize that the earth as it was originally created is truly under a curse. And it's not a curse like a magic curse that a witch would cast on somebody. It's the fact that it has changed position and the elements have changed. Just minor changes to the atmosphere have seriously cascading effects. I don't know if you were listening to him when he was talking about just the little tweaks that they made to the hyperbaric chamber. It's just like going from 0.5 atmospheres to 1.5 atmospheres or Gaussian effect or whatever. So little things that they tweaked based on what they could discern from the scripture and what they can discern from the archaeological digs that they looked up. So like dinosaurs, for instance, their lungs would not gather enough oxygen from our atmosphere today in order to completely supply their large bodies with enough oxygen for them to survive. So what does that tell them? That the oxygen when they were alive was much richer and more dense. So taking that information, they were able to tweak it, apply it to their hyperbaric chamber, and run the tests. And when you do that, it turns out it has a very positive effect on the body. In Revelation 9, it says, "And in those days people will seek death and will not find it. They will long to die, but death will flee from them." You know, it's interesting with seal number 5 and seal number 6, with as close as they are to each other, that seal number 5 is talking about death and bad things happening. And seal number 6 is talking about the magnetic pole shift, it seems like, and the return of Christ. You know, I had an interesting thought. You know, when it said that this is just a working theory, but the reason why we may have had to wait for Jesus to return is because of the atmosphere change. So if he were to come to the earth right now, it could have a very negative effect on his body. He may be waiting for the earth for that magnetic pole shift to change. I don't know what it does to the earth, but that could be one of the reasons why he's had to wait 2,000 years. Is it could literally be just a logistical thing of if he were to visit the earth right now, it would have a negative effect on his body. Isn't that weird? When you start thinking in those terms, it makes more sense to where it's just like, oh, that's why he's been absent. You know, maybe we're living on this shitty planet that needs to be fixed. You know, you look at the world and you think, oh, it's perfect. This is God's creation. This is exactly the way he made it. Well, no, probably not. You know, the earth has undergone serious changes that has a serious negative effect on our bodies. You know, when Tovia Singer, you know, he talks about nothing has happened that their rituals can't fix. There's no need for a virgin birth. Well, he may be missing some very important information, like the earth is under a curse, and like the atmosphere is no longer 1.5 like it was. Instead, it's 0.5, which has a negative effect on our bodies. So Jesus being born pure and living in this environment could have had an effect on him. That might be why he needed to die, so that he could get his new body. He had to put off the old body and get his new one, which might have, who knows? It could be affected by the earth. It could be affected by the atmosphere. Anyway, just a thought. Not to linger on that. So why a book that requires so much interpretation? God is not a man or any kind of creature that can simply step forward into physical space and reveal himself. And I think this is why the scripture warns us against associating images to God, is because the more that you try to put God in a box, the more you're going to have a hard time understanding him. And you know, go ahead right now, go outside and command the wind to take shape so that you can see it. It's not going to happen. You're asking for something that's not possible. Okay, let's listen to him up to 65 and 66.
Of making your existence just plain to everyone. If you want a relationship with us, why make your existence debatable at all? Why reveal yourself through a book that requires so much interpretation and translation and disagreement throughout the century?
Man, it all comes down to the religion. The reason we all disagree with each other is because we can't just look outside at the grass and the trees and the apples and the bees. We have to label and describe and dictate what the truth is. That's very much the knowledge of good and evil. We need to own the tree of knowledge of good and evil and require others to believe it. That's the problem. Can you imagine if we all just stopped arguing about our religions and started loving one another? That's ultimately what's going to be like when Christ comes back. Unfortunately, there are people that cannot do that. There are some people who will absolutely die believing that only their recipe for immortality is the right recipe.
Centuries. Why allow thousands of religions to claim they actually represent you and then ask us to choose the right one?
He doesn't. God knows full well what we're going through. That's why he sent his only begotten son. That's whoever believeth in him will not perish but have everlasting life. And it's not that those who, there's a scripture that talks about before the end, the whole world will hear the gospel. It's interesting, like what's been happening with as these end time events have been unfolding and the curse has been going throughout the whole earth, seeing the change in people's mentality, like witnessing is through the roof right now. I don't know about you, but I can't stop talking about God. That's different from 4 years ago. 4 years ago, or before COVID, I wouldn't bring it up at work. I wouldn't really talk about it at work. That was just, my studies outside of work. Reason being is because in college I did a lot of door-to-door witnessing. I've probably talked to 10, 20, 30,000 people. I have no idea how many people I've witnessed to, but I guarantee you it's a very substantial number. I got tired of it, so when that pastor had the balls to tell me I didn't love God, I was just like, you know what? After having dedicated my entire life to serving the Creator from a child and living up to that commitment and everything that I did for anyone supposedly above me or in charge of me to tell me I don't love God, who the hell do you think you are? You know what? You can just go F off. And that's what happened. Quite honestly, I learned a lot from that. I learned that God was not only in that cult, because that's what was my mentality. I thought I was part of the faithful remnant. I thought I was part of a special group, which is where a lot of people believe they are. They believe that only in their group will they be saved. Only with the knowledge that they have in their group is the only knowledge that will save them. Unfortunately, I don't think that's really true. For all the reasons that Dr. Todd is all the questions he's been asking. Like, what about somebody who's born in an area where they have no experience, no introduction to your particular doctrine or belief? Does that mean that those people are all going to burn in hell? I don't believe that to be the case. I think that the children of Israel are spread throughout the entire earth. And then they've all been subject to different denominations, religions, and belief. And that this time now they're coming out of it. They're starting to realize this death cult, this cult of confusion, does not have the right answers.
Why let where we were born shape what we believe about you? Or if we believe in you at all?
Okay. Why so many religions claiming to speak for God? Have we gotten there? Babel so this is, I've referred to Babylon a lot in this video. So that's coming from Genesis 11, is the biblical picture of human religion and empires attempting to reach heaven on their own terms, ending in confusion of language and division. So if you read Genesis 11, that's the story of Babylon. Men trying to reach God, the end of which is confusion of language and division. The multiplication of religions that claim to speak for the true God is the ongoing fruit of that confusion. The call is to return to pure revelation, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to test everything against that. One of the reasons why I'm so insistent on the seals being what they are is because of the high probability that they're correct. That seal, the Revelation 12 sign, is something verifiable that anybody who cares to can go verify if it's as unique as I claim it is. Seriously, if you want to defeat, the doctrine of the two witnesses live, go find another occurrence of the Revelation 12 sign. you'll put some serious sand in the machinery of this channel, because the whole reason I'm doing this channel is because the Revelation 12 sign is unique. It seems to be an anchor telling us that the book of Revelation is written to our day and time, that the information contained in the book of Revelation applies to us now. So we spend all of our time trying to understand what's written in the book of Revelation, because the book of Revelation says that he who reads will be blessed. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty blessed. I'm having a hell of a time. It is so much fun making music and finding these little nuggets, these gems, and finding people like Dr. Todd and hopefully help him see who God really is, not what the Tower of Babel has tried to tell him he is. The call is to return to pure revelation, sincere seekers, and genuine uncertainty. I think that's where we are.
If eternal destiny is really at stake, why make the evidence so uncertain?
Yeah. Much of the uncertainty is the result of inherited lies that must be unlearned. Sincerity alone is not enough if one is still looking through the wrong lenses. A revealing diagnostic is the difference between empathy and narcissism. The serpent in the garden operated through deception for self-exaltation. Many religious leaders and systems continue that pattern, creating and maintaining confusion for control, for status, or gain. And I would probably add in here for ignorance, because there's a lot of pastors who are just ignorant. They just don't know any better. They haven't bothered to question what it is that they're doing, so they just continue to do it because that's what they were raised with. And this is the problem with the tree of knowledge of good and evil is that knowledge can replicate and multiply and persist throughout the centuries. So you believe what you believe very likely because your parents told you to believe it. And they believed what they believed because their parents told them to believe it. So a lie can span generations, unfortunately. That is the major source of hiddenness that people experience. When you start to realize that God is everywhere, you start to see him everywhere and in everything. Unlearn the lies and listen for that still small voice. Strip away what was falsely taught. Return to the actual testimony of Scripture and creation. Remember that the Scripture, creation, the heavens, they all have the same author. They're not going to contradict each other. You know what I mean? This is why when I'm looking for trying to understand the heavens, it's filtered through the Scripture. Return to the actual testimony of Scripture and creation. Learn to recognize the still small voice and the witness of the created order. God is not absent. The connection was damaged in the fall, and human systems have layered more confusion on top of it. The restoration of that connection is part of the larger redemption story. This is where Jesus comes in, and the gift of Holy Spirit. The gift of Holy Spirit is like a temporary Wi-Fi connection. This is why we can hear a still small voice, I believe. All right, I think we're at the end.
Why let sincere people who sincerely search for you still come up empty? What are we supposed to conclude from that?
I don't know if they come up empty. I think that this venture of his he's going to end up with more answers than he ever got when he was a mega pastor, teaching from the mega pastor church syllabus. You know, most churches have a syllabus, right, of their approved doctrine. That's a thing. So he probably had teachings that he was allowed to teach and things that he was not allowed to teach. Sadly. Once you break free from that and you can really start to ask the hard questions, that's when you start to discover who God really is.
If knowing you matters more than anything else in all of creation and existence, why make knowing you this hard? If God is...
All right, so this is what we'll tackle tomorrow, unnecessary suffering. You can already guess what the answer is going to be. We're under the curse. God made a perfect system that balances itself out. We're still in the rebalancing phase. He promised from the very beginning the seed of the woman would bruise the head of the serpent. So we're still waiting for the full redemption for those who have been redeemed. You and I have been redeemed. We must persist and overcome. All right. Well, let's that puts us at 2.5 hours. Let's just do a quick daily torment report to see if there's anything worth note in here. Donald J. Trump. Okay, we just got a bunch of wins. A lot of wins, pleased to nominate Ron. Okay, nominations. The restoration of Thomas Jefferson. He's doing so much restoration and making so many things beautiful. It's pretty awesome. Oh, Lindsey Graham. It started as a joke, and now I think he's making it real. New U.S. territory. This is fire from the mouth, in my opinion. I don't think he intends to make it a new U.S. territory, but look at how many people it triggers by him doing it. It's awesome. I think he should make it a U.S. territory. Even if it started as a joke, I think he should make it a U.S. territory. That would be hilarious. Let's see. More stuff. Let's see, Alaska. President Donald J. Trump is absolutely correct. 640 billion. Okay. Earlier this month. Okay. So much election stuff. All right, probably good for now. We got a couple of little gems in there. Let's find Elon. Elon Musk. What's this?
To begin with, I would personally argue that Elon Musk is in all likelihood the most significant tech figure and the most vital entrepreneur in the world for the future of our own country. Following the decision by Elon Musk and his company SpaceX to completely cut off access to Starlink for the Russian military forces who were utilizing it illegally on our sovereign territory, he effectively managed to save our entire air defense network, our national aviation capabilities, and the lives of thousands of innocent civilians who were caught in the crossfire. Sai?
Are you currently engaged in a conversation with...
Is this what it means when it says that the two witnesses have power over rain and stuff like that? I didn't think about that. But he legitimately has massive power with Starlink, turning it off and on for different countries. I wonder if that's not part of it, because Donald Trump has similar capabilities as commander-in-chief. So you have two men working towards the same objective that have very significant power. I wonder if that's part of the two witnesses, like the different capabilities that they have. Interesting. All right, well, okay, guy driving full self-driving with no arms, no legs. Cool.
Life, but Tesla in general has changed my life. I love my Model S so much. I bought it last year and I already have over 25,000 miles on it. And most of those miles are on FSD. And FSD is so nice because someone like me with short arms, I can click one button and I can literally let go of the steering wheel, let go of the pedals.
Clearly he doesn't know the voice commands. You can tell it to start full self-driving.
And it'll drive for me. And I love the buttons on the steering wheel. The turn signals on the steering wheel right here to the left. Fantastic. I don't got to move my arms anywhere. I can just click a button. Some people don't like it.
I think you could say, hey, Grok now. I think you can say, hey, Grok, start full self-driving. I haven't tried it, but I think you can.
But for me, it's amazing. I just love all the controls on the steering wheel. FSD is so good. It really changed my life.
Anyway, yeah, I agree. I mean, sorry. You can't see somebody with no arms and no legs driving a car and not stop and see what he has to say. That was pretty cool. Grokbot, he's done a lot with programming and AI. They're all for socialism. This could be interesting.
Rather have in America, socialism or capitalism?
I would say socialism.
How do you view the word socialism, favorably or unfavorably?
I guess I would go with favorably.
Why?
I got family in Europe. They go to college for free.
Their healthcare is paid for. They don't have to worry about it at all.
I favor that over capitalism.
Okay, got it.
I also think I favor that, like, socialism over capitalism.
Socialism is more geared toward like helping the people in your, the governed.
I'd rather people have that same opportunity. There's a lot of excess in America.
So on campus, if there's a GPA disparity where there's people at the bottom with a poor GPA, would you support a policy where people at the top spread the wealth and give that GPA to people at the bottom?
Help them get a better GPA? I'm all for helping.
The thing about this whole socialism, communism debate is, we frame it negatively because of the history behind socialism and communism. But the people, I can see the people are trying to empathize. And this is the problem is they're trying to empathize with their fellow man. Like, we should all, have abundance together, not have a system where one person is better off than another. I get that. That is honorable. But the problem is we're in a cursed system where people cannot be trusted to live that way. Somebody is going to take advantage and ultimately kill other people. That's the problem with communism and socialism on a cursed planet. The only way that communism and socialism work, where everybody has abundance and everybody is happy, is not under the curse, where people are good-hearted, they love God, and they love their neighbor as themselves. So that's the way we should be framing this conversation. Is right now people can't be trusted. We've seen that. The evidence is people can't be trusted. Those people, when they can be trusted, then we can actually have honest conversations about what it is that people want. They want to take care of people. They want the disadvantaged to have everything that they need. And that's an honorable goal. And people should be praised for that. Like, look, it's clear that you love your fellow man. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Is that what you're going for with your idea of communism and socialism? Unfortunately, that's unrealistic given the world we live in, because there are very evil people. Tim Pool has been talking about this lately with different interviews that he's had, and he's noticed that the world is there's people who are well-intentioned who screw up and fix their mistakes, but then there's a large number of people who are just outright evil, that their actions and everything that they live for is to harm others. And those people are the ones that are the problem. They're probably the ones who are affected or possessed by the demons, the evil spirits. They could be the ones who are sealed to the mark of the beast. They could be the ones who are sealed to the mark of the beasts, the ones who are evil continually. And there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. We know that. There's going to be people who think that they're saved, but if everything you believe and everything you do is just evil continually, do you expect to be allowed into a perfect system where there's perfect balance? I don't know. If you have no light and you're just darkness, how can you be allowed to coexist with light? That's the unfortunate reality. There is that degree of that. I'm not the enforcer. I'm not advocating, eliminate the darkness. That's God's job. I think that's what we're going through now. It's part of the curse going throughout the whole earth, is the curse goes into the homes of the thieves and the perjurers and burns them down to the ground. All right. What else? Okay, we're at 2.5 hours. That's probably pretty good. There's some pretty good insights here, some couple of things. We'll cover more of these tomorrow, but that was a lot to cover today. So there we are. So the update on the eclipse, I honestly have no idea if we're in seal number 5. Kind of back to the drawing board. And I know there's going to be people who say, I told you so. Keep on saying I told you so. I'm just going to keep on doing it. Ain't nothing going to stop me, because my Lord told me, continue to watch. If you want to be found watching when he returns. You do not want to be the one who's turning and beating the servants who are watching. And the benefit of watching is at some point we're going to realize when the thief is coming. So we may not have got it right now, seal number 5, but we've got so many cool puzzle pieces to play with. And if you're interested in doing the research, and if you're interested in the star stuff, See what you can make of it. See if you can find anything that's interesting. Let me know if you have anything that I should consider. Like I said, the astrologists, we'll have to find a couple of them. But that was one of the things that stood out to me, is there were some astrologists who were talking about an assassination attempt that were going to hit an ear on somebody within like 30 days, and they got it from the astrology. So some people took advantage of that, and they are not fully telling you that they got that information from those people. Who knows if they're doing it intentionally or unintentionally. Here, let me see if I can find it real quick, just so, because I probably won't look this up again, and since we're talking about it now, let me see. Astrologers. Astrology of Trump assassination attempt 2 years ago. Was this it? Here's one from 10 years ago.
I am astrologer and metaphysics professional Dave Sanchez. No doubt Donald Trump has risen to national prominence as a leading contender for President of the United States. Notwithstanding his erratic candor and abusive remarks, Mr. Trump has managed to capture the support of a loyal following and has established a seemingly boundless election campaign momentum. At birth, Donald Trump's horoscope does show the capacity for achievement, power, wealth, and leadership, but it also reveals the potential for assassination or sudden death.
See?
Using a unique form of astrology,
This is one of the reasons why, we may bash on astrology. What I'm really, look, I'm just interested in truth. If you guys if it offends people because I may listen to somebody, this is how you find truth. Just because you listen to somebody does not mean you have to believe them. But check this out. So this is this guy here. Oops.
It is now possible to view specific horoscope features that can render any person vulnerable to an instant or violent demise. Now, I can best assess your case or any other for these possibilities and more by conducting a comprehensive horoscope analysis. As your astrologer, I am standing by to receive your questions and request for service. You can reach me through either YP or Google at New Era.
Here's another one. See, one of the reasons they were thinking that it was one of the reasons they were thinking it was going to be in the ear is because of this sign.
Welcome to a special inside track on Donald Trump. People have been asking me about what's happened.
When was the
shootings, assassination attempts? It's dark stuff. Let's take a look at Mr. Trump's natal horoscope to begin with. The Sun and the North Node, and pretty close to them Uranus, are right at the top of the chart in the Northern Hemisphere, and the 10th house is very much to do with where we connect to the world at large. So there is a fated dimension for sure with the North Node on the Sun.
New Era.
The Sun.
New.
This looks a lot like what my app came up with.
Communicator. But when Mr. Trump was born, the moon was in the opposite sign of Sagittarius. So he was born on a full moon. That does make it more difficult to integrate the emotional energies of the moon. And of course, the moon in Sagittarius in itself is very free-spirited. So we have a mutable
when was the
energy
Pennsylvania assassination attempt?
Top of the chart, but also with the South Node on the moon at the bottom of the chart. So that's the part of his situation where he likes to be free around his home and family.
I want to say it was 2024.
Now the ascendant is at 29 degrees 57 on the anaretic point in Leo. Leo is a very grand sign, of course, and Mars, the planet of desire and passion, but also assertion, which does gain from a lot of extra elevation in terms of self-confidence, is also very close to that ascendant in the sign of Leo, but it is tucked up in the 12th house. But the critical thing is both, but particularly the ascendant, very close to the fixed star Regulus, regal. So this is a person who feels comfortable in the limelight and seeks it out
What
at
year?
every
2
opportunity.
years ago, July 13th.
So that
Yeah,
gives
it was
us a
about 2
little
years
bit
ago.
of a flavour when it comes to his relating.
New.
The attempted assassination of Donald Trump, an astrological perspective. His ear. From an astrological perspective, the position of the transiting planets in the heavens at that moment in relation to Trump's natal chart's planetary positions is very interesting. The planets and aspects of interest here are Mars and Uranus. On the day in question, Mars, the planet of proactive...
I say Uranus. I'm pretty sure Uranus is actually the proper pronunciation. I always laugh.
...of proactive movement, aggression, and energy.
Here you go. Did Mars and Uranus conjunction... Oh my God, that is so loud. Did the Mars and Uranus conjunction plus Algo star cause Trump's announcement? Is this it? There was one of them right when it happened. The videos got really, really popular. It's not going to be these ones. It's not going to be the ones with 29 views. It's going to be like ones with like 12,000 views. Yeah, like this.
Videos on Vedic astrology. The attempt to assassinate Donald Trump. In my last video, I shared with you that.
So this is why some people who are now supposedly big prophets, they listen to these guys. And there might be something to it. Like scripture does tell us that night unto night shows knowledge. So these guys may have some knowledge somehow or figured out how to reverse engineer some aspects that they were able to determine that there was going to be an assassination attempt on Trump. This one's only 3 months old. How is this proof?
Noon, UK time, on Sunday, the 26th of April, 2026. I'm on holiday, strange though it may seem. I've run away to one of my runaway points because I'm so caught up with stuff around shifts happen that this is the last chance I've got to get a break before I dive headfirst into manic work for a few weeks. So I've run away and of today, the 26th of April, 1:35 a.m. UK time, or the horoscope of the 25th of April, 2025, at 8:35 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, set for Washington, D.C. At 8:35 p.m. last night, Washington time, a shooter managed to break through the security cordon around the Washington Hotel and break into the lobby where various people were talking and the high and mighty of American politics were whining and dining. A Secret Service agent did get shot in the chest, but he was wearing a Kevlar vest. And the shooter was apprehended and found to be carrying multiple weapons. No one...
Getting distracted. I'll find it. But yeah, so this is you can oh, see, here's another one. 3 months ago. Yeah, some people were claiming that they were receiving special information, and I would bet my bottom dollar that they were probably listening to the astrologists. So there may be something to it. I don't know. It's worth investigating. I don't know. I've always been leery about investigating astrology just because of the associations, the negative associations with it. I get it. I deal with it anytime anytime I tell somebody I'm looking to the stars, like the Revelation 12 sign. People freak out when you talk about that, but it's like, it's undeniable evidence. Why would you be afraid of looking at it if it's something that proves that we're in the end times? If it's something that proves the book of Revelation is written to us, if it gives us information to know when the thief is coming, why would you not want to look at that? Like, I'm not going to be afraid of it. It's the mystical stuff that I think turns people off. It's just like, I don't want to be associated with magic or witchcraft. That's really like tarot cards. Like, I'm not going to go do tarot cards. But there was, maybe it's this one. 2.7 million. There were definitely videos that had come out before the assassination attempt saying there was going to be an assassination attempt. I'll find a couple of them. Maybe we'll do a show on it. See what I can figure out from astrology without getting sucked into it. Oh, a long night. Whoa. All right, what else? It's been a long time. I just want to make sure I cover all of our bases. I've been gone for 2 weeks, week and a half, like half of August, 2 weeks. I think I've been gone almost 2 weeks. Boy, has it been a whirlwind. It does not feel like 2 weeks. It might feel like 2 weeks to you guys. It does not feel like 2 weeks to me. It feels like it's been like 2 days. Is there anything else I need to cover? Is there anything else we need to do? I already told you we're looking to expand the model of the show. We want to try and get something to publish like in the morning, and then so I can do more interviews and get some really interesting interviews, because I would love to talk to Tovia Singer, Roseanne Barr. If you didn't see the recent Roseanne Barr Tovia Singer video, you should watch that. It's really good. Everybody's talking about the end times. We all know Messiah is coming soon. That's the ultimate goal, what we're looking for. When's the Messiah? When's he coming? When is the redemption paid? When do I get my new body? When are we out? When are we no longer subject to the curse? When do people put down their weapons for plowshares? And when do we come out of Babylon? When do we come out of this confusion and all? When can communism actually work? Just kidding. Boy, oh boy. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm back. Things are settling down. We're back at the farm. I'm back in the studio tonight. This is the start of good things. We'll have new songs, new teachings tomorrow. Tomorrow we're covering unnecessary suffering. Why is there so much unnecessary suffering? That's an easy one. We're under the curse. This is what we're all hoping for. Death is temporary. That is the thing that we need to take away from that, the unnecessary suffering. It's a consequence. God warned Adam, don't eat of it. Don't eat the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the day you eat thereof, you will die. And we've been dealing with death ever since, unfortunately. So I cannot wait until death is no more. That'll be the day. The cool thing is God planned for our redemption from the very beginning. So he knew that this period of time was going to happen. God's perspective of death is not, again, in the same way that we have to be careful the things we demand of God, the boxes you try to put him in, the clay containers you try to put him in. We also have to be very careful with, I just lost my train of thought. Our assumptions. We have to be careful with our assumptions about the way things are. God does not view, I don't think death is obviously precious to God. Like, it costs him something because he wanted you to be alive. Obviously, or you would not be alive. God wanted you to be a light in this world. God wanted you to have the opportunity to know him. That is what churches should be teaching. is there is a creator. He wanted you to be alive. The evidence is you're alive and you have a consciousness. And he wants you to know him. And he wants you to have life and have it more abundantly. A lot of people don't know that because you may find yourself in a difficult situation. And it's hard to see positive things when you're in a difficult situation, but you sure as hell know it when you come out. That's for sure. But the truth is that we have a God who loves us and who planned for our redemption from the very beginning. He warned Adam, "In the day you eat thereof, there was going to be problems." And at the same time, he also planned a fix. And that's what we're looking for. We're waiting for that fix to come. And at that time, we'll have all the clear answers. I can only give you portions of answers and try to encourage you to love God. Everything we do here is to encourage you to love God. It's never my intention to get you to leave God. I want you to leave confusion. I want you to come out from the lies, and I want you to have a better understanding of who the Creator really is. Well, he's far bigger than you probably have imagined yourself. I may not have done a very good job of communicating just how big the Creator is, but he is way bigger than you or I can possibly imagine. And he's with you always. And maybe you don't see him when you pray. My wife says this. Every time she prays, it seems she suffers consequences. And I tell her, I go, maybe you should embrace the consequences because he might be telling you something. Tribulation has a way of eliminating excuses. Tribulation has a way of breaking hard hearts. Tribulation and consequences have a way of softening people. Maybe you're a little bit too narcissistic. Maybe you need to have some consequences. If you're asking God for something and you're expecting a particular result, it may be that you needed a good ass kicking to get what you really want. Just keep in mind that our God is a mighty God. And with that, God bless you guys. Shalom.
Our God is a mighty God. He stands eternal and strong, with power, justice, and truth. Our God is a mighty God. Our God is a mighty He stands eternal and strong, with iron and flame, justice forged in the void, light that crushes the dark. Our God is a mighty God. Heavens tear open, worlds tremble at his battle march. Every darkness, every tyrant, every curse will fall when the Messiah rises and announces the final call. He splits the seas with a roar like a lion, commands the legions in celestial advance. The lightning his hammer, the thunder he wields. He vanquishes evil and makes the broken healed. Our God is a mighty God.